What's going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the Ravens Roundtable here on Two Guys Watching Football, coming to you simulcast with our buddies at Baltimore Beatdown, Jake Luke, and Spencer Schultz, who I'm assuming is somewhere in an Irish bar right now. Jake, my guy, how's it going?
Going good. Yeah, it sounds like he might have gotten a little steep on the Guinnesses there. So yeah, I am going to be representing us here along with James, who is not a writer for Baltimore Beatdown, but that's okay.
But we have James Ogden joining us, Russell Street Report, UK Ravens, RedStarBaltimore.com. James, how's it going, man?
Not bad, Cole. This is my regular nightcap now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's why I keep telling you and Dan. I'm like, can you guys come again? Can you come join? But yeah, we love getting you. I'm glad this news dropped before you snuck away into bed. And like, I mean, you're in the UK. How does St. Patrick's Day go with you? Is it just kind of normal? Is it more exciting with close proximity to Ireland? What's that all about?
It's probably less exciting. I feel like there's less Irish heritage over here in England, just because the English are the baddies over in Southern Ireland. So it's not as many
and
Irish
just
here.
So we're all on the same page here, the Packers just traded Devontae Adams live to the Las Vegas Raiders for 2 prime 2022 picks. So
wow,
whoa! Thank God we're not a Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders podcast / YouTube channel. So that just hit the marker for you guys out there watching. And we got 22 people in here right now. Be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, go check out Baltimore Beatdown, where this will be simulcast as well. And what we're getting into today, the big topic, Michael Pierce. Well, 2 topics. We had the reneging on the deal of Zadarius Smith, who decided he wasn't down with that. I guess I don't know if he was getting made fun of by the boys that he's training with, or what it was for signing a team-friendly deal, but he pulled out, and so the Ravens kind of clapped right back. I'm sure this was a move they were probably lining up anyway. We know they were looking at Eddie Goldman. I think he was supposed to visit on Friday. Familiar face in Michael Pierce. So out with one familiar face in Zadarius Smith, in with another, Michael Pierce, $16.5 million over 3 years. We're going to jump into the cap situation here in a second, but I just kind of want to pick your guys' brains, instant reactions. What'd you think, James? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's disappointing, isn't it? Because I do think edge was definitely a real need, and Zadarius, it just seemed like it. I suppose maybe it did seem too good to be true. In terms of the cap deal. But I also think, when you look at those other deals that were done, the Von Miller deal and the Chandler Jones deal, I'm not sure they're as big as they were reported. Those seem like very agent-friendly numbers that had been reported in the media. So I don't think there was as much discrepancy as maybe it looked when you see another $100 million deal for Von Miller. It's disappointing because I felt like Zadarius was the kind of perfect foil for Owe. It would have been a really fearsome partnership coming off the edge. So it's disappointing in that sense, but you've got to move on.
Yeah, and Jake, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a total 180. I mean, we're talking about what we were talking about this last night, how it was just a total good vibe signing all around. It's the prodigal son kind of making good and coming home, and he's taking a team-friendly deal. You're thinking maybe this is like a hometown discount. He wants to come back here. We're talking about how his family is kind of still located in the area. So it just seemed like something that was going to work out, kind of team-friendly for the Ravens. And they were going to get a player, to James's point, that is a perfect foil for the, guy they drafted in the first round last year. So I don't know, guys. Maybe when it's too good to be true, it is. And certainly seems that was the case here, but
you're nailing it, because last night the first thing I thought of is like, how'd they get this deal so low? Like Sarah Ellison tweeted it, like I think he was 39th amongst edge defenders and 19th amongst outside linebackers, and I was like, it doesn't make sense. And yeah, no, I mean, you kind of saw Jay-Z put it out there, so it's not really me kind of guessing here. He said, let me find the quote. I think the reaction to the deal getting leaked with peers and other people saying it was too team friendly of a deal, along with the timing of it, with Von Miller and Chandler Jones deals coming out, probably impacted. So, I mean, there it is, right? From, there's no one more reliable than Jeff in the around Baltimore sports media. So seems to be that's what it was. But we're moving on to Michael Pierce. I mean, leave it in the past. It sucks. If he ends up with the Chiefs, well, we'll see you soon. And I'm going to send Morgan Moses at your butt. So let's react to Pierce here before we jump into the cap. Instant reaction. Jake, let's go to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where it feels obviously like the consolation move. It feels like the move that they're making in replacement to Zadarius Smith. But I don't know, guys. Like, they had Eddie Goldman lined up for Friday. So it felt like they were going to be making a move here regardless. So why not go with a guy that you're familiar with? There's some people. There's a person who's a good friend of mine that is not maybe the happiest right now. His name starts with a V. And basically it comes down to that figure of $16.5 million. It definitely looks like a lot. And Voss is talking about like AAV and all that stuff, and I get it, but the guarantees, when you look at them, 6.75 total comes out to about 2.25 average per year. So we'll see how it's structured. We don't totally know yet, so maybe we shouldn't even be talking about it totally until we get McFarland or whoever is smarter than us to break that down. But yeah, it just feels to me like they were going to make a move here anyway. Why not go and get a guy like this? I looked into his PFF stuff. He was a pretty prolific pass rusher last year when healthy. He only played 8 games. People are kind of making the point that he's only played 8 games in the last 2 years. Well, he opted out in 2020, so a little misleading there. So, yeah, if he can stay healthy and have, let's say, half that pass rushing effectiveness rate, I'm pretty much fine with it for that final figure that we're talking about, around 2.25 per year, if it does shake out to that.
And James, how about you, my man?
Yeah, I'm with Jake. You know, this was a move they were going to make. Like, defensive line was a need, especially nose. Like, if you're not going to bring Brandon Williams back, you were going to have to bring someone in, and you did not want to back yourself into a corner with this draft class. You know, you were probably going to have to at some point get out of the second round with Travis Jones. If you were really going to plug this gap, that, you know, it's not a deep sort of big defensive tackle draft class. So if you weren't going to address this, you were going to back yourself into a corner. So I do think that this was going to happen anyway. I think this was probably a kind of deal, as Jake said. They had Eddie Goldman coming in. It just felt like this was a hole they were going to plug in free agency. And I don't have a problem, you know, like you said, it'll be interesting to see what the structure is. But if it is, you know, not in reality the 16 million, then it's a good deal. People have to remember there's, you know, you've got to get, if you're not going to use the roster spot on Pierce, you have to use it on another guy, and you're probably not going to get a big nose tackle for just that is useful for just the veteran minimum. So you've got to look at this as kind of above the vet minimum, and I think it's probably a good use of the cap dollars in that sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important in these scenarios, like, to look at because it's not just every positional group is different. Every free agency period is different, and so guys get paid on different scales. They hit the market different times, so there's no better time to kind of look at a comparative than guys. So basically, I'm saying let's look at nose tackles signed recently. The most recent is Harrison Phillips, former Buffalo Bill, who signed with the Vikings, replacing Michael Pierce, and he signed for 6.5 AAV. It was 19.5 over the 3 years. So he came in a full million AAV, and like Harrison Phillips had 25 pressures in the full year, including playoffs last year. He's not a pass rusher. You know, he's primarily a plugging nose tackle that's going to give you a little bit of pocket push. So, you know, that's Michael Pierce's peer. He got a full million less AAV. So, you know, it's not, I guess, like, I get it. I get the reaction that, you know, we're paying for run defense, but, do you want to spend pick 14 on run defense? Do you want to rely on a 4th round pick, a Noah Ellis, a John Ridgeway to kind of be your, because I mean, run D's almost become like special teams. We don't talk about it until we don't have it, and it's screwing us in a game. And then it's like, well, why don't we have any run D? So,
sorry, I mean, how does this AAV thing work? What is this cap hit going to look like every year?
So it's hard to say. So let me throw this up. Dan Reese at DP Reese 8 put this together. So this is the updated cap picture off of the estimated $3 million cap hit of Michael Pierce in year 1. It would look similar to, he's told me to look at Derek Wolf's most recent contract because they had similar guaranteed money where he had 2.9, 3.8, 5.3. So obviously that he signed a bigger deal. So those numbers are increased a little bit, specifically in years 2 and 3. So, I mean, he could be looking at 3 mil this year, 4.8 and 6.3 in the next 2 years. We'll learn the exact details, but that's roughly what it's going to look like. But here's where our cap picture currently sits is, and this is factoring in the rookie class because we know it's going to hit. With the adjustment, we're left with $2.4 million. They carry 5 into the season, but as we know, there's buttons they can hit. So if you just restructure Stanley and Humphrey, factoring in the estimated $3 million cap hit of Michael Pierce, that brings us to a total of 15.9 in cap space if they want to restructure both Stanley and Humphrey. So, this wasn't a deal that kind of took basically what I want to say here, what I want to show is, they missed out on Zadarius. They might go with another pass rusher. They might go for a corner with that money. This doesn't take them out of that market. It wasn't, we lost Zadarius Smith, so now we got Michael Pierce. Like you guys said, I completely agree. I think they were going to do this with either be it Michael Pierce, be it Eddie Goldman, be it some of the other nose tackles. I mean, they could have even done a Brandon Williams reunion for like a 2-year, $6 million, and you're looking at a very similar cap hit. But yeah, for what this is going to look like in the next 3 years, we'll find out more, but that's roughly what it is. It's like 3 million, 4.8, 6.3 in year 3. So, and I would imagine that third year is going to have very low dead money with some cap savings that they can get out of. So it's going to be pretty similar to Morgan Moses' deal. I mean, he was 3 times 15. And it essentially looks like it can be just a 2-year deal.
If he makes north of $5 million in a cap hit at any point for his remainder of his time with the Ravens, I will eat my words on this, but I'm not going to lose my mind over this.
No, we're talking about maybe eating 2.7% of the cap. It's just one of those. It's like, I get it, pay for run D, premium pay. Brandon Williams was a premium. They paid $10 million AAV. It's not 6 years ago. 6 years ago. It's not that. So, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's just, again, they need a nose tackle. You need a nose tackle. Right now, I'm the nose tackle out there, Christ. But seriously, the nose tackle on the roster is Isaiah Mack, who I actually really like. I'm kind of bullish on Isaiah Mack, but I don't want Isaiah Mack out there when Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb are coming downhill. I just don't. So let's jump into this part of the conversation because I really want to get some opinions on this. James, is Michael Pierce just a run stuffer? Go.
No, he's not. He's always going to bring you. So the way I see Pierce, it's quite similar to how he was when he was in Baltimore, really. Which is if you're an offensive guard or you're a center and you're coming out at him and you're coming out with poor hand placement or you're coming out with bad leverage, he's gonna take advantage of it and he's gonna hit you and he's gonna run you back into the QB. So. He is a pass rusher in the sense he'll take what the offensive lineman is giving him and he will push the pocket and he'll be a little bit disruptive. And you've seen that in Minnesota. They let him rush a bit more. They put him in the as a shade quite a few times, and they let him sort of get after the quarterback a little bit. But he did come off on third downs a lot. But you're going to get that out of a nose. You're just going to want a more athletic pass rusher inside in obvious passing situations. So he's going to bring you something when you have to rush the passer on first and second down. He's not an elite interior pass rusher, but he's going to push the pocket. He's got some moves. He's giving you something. To be honest, at this point, the thing that I always liked about Pierce, and I watched a couple of games of him once they announced from last season, once they announced the signing, and he's still got those movement skills that he had at that size. That was the thing that always stuck out to me when he played with the Ravens, that he just did have just really quite good movement skills, good athletic ability for a guy of the size that he is. And when a guy has that, that he's always going to be a little bit of a threat inside as a pass rusher.
Right. Well said. Well said. And Dan's down in the comments. What's up, Dan? So he said guesses for cap hits 3 mil this year, 5.8 next year, 6.5 the year after. So again, I'm assuming that third year is going to have some potential cost savings if they want out of the contract, just like they have with Morgan Moses' deal. Now that we know its details, so again, relatively low risk. That might get you up to 3.2% of the cap, depending on if the cap booms like they say it's going to boom. But again, this isn't taking you out of anybody's market. So, but Jake, I want to get your opinion. What do you think overall about the play style? What he's going to bring?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I was talking about, and I'm certainly no expert on like trench play or anything like that, but pretty much every time a signing happens, I go to PFF, I check and see what their grades were for the past year, and he played 8 games last year to the point that I mentioned, and I think he had like an 84 pass rush grade, 3 sacks in 8 games. So that's pretty impressive to me. But I did go back and look at all of his other years in the league. He definitely trended more towards run defense. I don't think he was ever below like a 65-ish pass rush grade, which is pretty adequate, pretty good for PFF. So, I mean, you're probably getting somewhere in the middle of that, right? Which, to me, the way I'm looking at this is I would certainly take what he's going to bring you at $3 million this year rather than use a first round pick on the same position. I just feel like you break it down that cost wise. I'm certainly much more inclined to pay Pierce as opposed to, and not that I don't like Jordan Davis or anything like that, but I'd much rather go with Pierce than draft a guy at that position so highly.
Yeah, and James really nailed a key point of this one, which I was surprised to see. The Vikings really did. They didn't just use him as a zero shade. He actually logged more snaps as a defensive tackle, which their definition's tough. I think it's basically 2 to 3 to 4. No, 2 to 3 tech. So over the guard, in between guard and tackle. And I went through. I think I got through almost the third quarter of the Bengals game just to see a little bit. I mean, he's mostly coming off the field on third down, third and long situations, and they opt for it. But I mean, that's any nose tackle in the National Football League. Even if the Ravens signed Jordan Davis or drafted Jordan Davis or Travis Jones, there's no guarantee they're going to be out there. They're going to opt for more dogs out there to go hunt. So, I mean, that's normal, but teams pass on first and second down. And then you kind of look, okay, what's happening here? When he's on the field, first, second down pass situation that's not play action, almost every single time that I saw the Bengals, they double teamed him because he just benches Trey Hopkins off of his chest. That's what his strength is. His ability to create leverage with his upper body strength was truly impressive. It's kind of tough to see his run D in that Bengals game because they run so much outside zone. Specifically in that game, they were running a lot of stretch. Not just off the tackle, off the tight end. So, I mean, they're just pushing the ball to the sideline. Your nose tackle is not really going to beat those reps. But, I shared a clip on Twitter. You guys can go see. He's savvy in double teams. They ran a duo concept. He took on a double. The center tried to come off and get Eric Kendricks. And you can see he's got that inside hand on the chest plate. He holds him just long enough for Kendricks to get by. Kendricks misses the tackle, but he completely created for his teammate. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see, in my opinion. So, it's not just being let's just go get a run defender. He's a very good run defender. He has a very strong anchor, takes on double teams. I think between him and Matabike, it really will fit with Mike McDonald with what they're going to want to do with him. He likes that 1-tech, 3-tech setup. He kind of anchors double teams. Matabike splits double teams. I think the run D is going to look okay on the inside. And then when he's in those opportunities, they're either going to double him. It's going to create opportunities for someone else, or he's going to be able to get a push on just one guy. Not many centers can block him, one-on-one.
The thing with him, I know people don't like run defense, but I love talking about run defense. What I like about what he does with double teams is he's just got a number of different ways to occupy or beat double teams. You can do the classic Ravens move where you get in and corkscrew the leg and reduce the surface area that the drive man's got to hit on you. You can but that's the majority of what you'll see Ravens defenders do. What I like about Pierce is he does other stuff too. So he gets into you quickly. He's into you first. He's got great placement with his hands. He's going to reset the levels of the offensive line by getting into you quickly and sort of resetting that line of scrimmage, which can really hurt a run play. But the other thing he can do is just completely and utterly collapse the pile. Like there are times when he's just taking 2 or 3 offensive linemen out with him, and he might be on the floor, but they're on the floor with him too, and there's a complete pile up, and no one's going anywhere. And this is the thing with him. He's just a very, very consistent run defender, and this is a good price for that.
And what's a role for Patrick Queen? Gap shooter, right? So that's going to make his life a lot easier.
That is a great point, because watching a guy like Kendrick shooting those gaps, you kind of envision what that's going to look like. He's just going to demand double team. And Brandon Williams did do that. I'm not going to take that away from him. But the big difference and we saw this when they played together in 2019, I think was their last year, or 2018 maybe. Was it 2018? Was his last year here?
I believe so.
I think so. Yeah, 2018. And so what they used to do back then is they moved B. Will to more of a no, it was 2019 because it was that Titans game. Or did they have Derek Wolfe in that game? No, they went out and got Derek Wolfe because of that game.
I think you're right, because I think he signed with the Vikings, then opted out, and that was like the whole big thing.
That's right. Yeah, he was here in 2019. Right, because I remember watching. Okay, so what happened in 2019 that drove me crazy in that Titans game with defense, and why I thought Derrick Henry went off, was because they used to have Pierce as the 1 tech, and they moved Williams to the 3 tech, a role that Williams did not fit in well. When Pierce left, I remember there was an interview when he got to the Vikings. He was talking about B. Will, and he's like, he now gets to move back to his natural position. And so that's the big difference is, we had 2 guys that were kind of the 1 tech, and again, zone concepts when you had Williams out in space, when he had to make a play as a 3 tech, erase the cutback lane on outside zone. He's just not athletic enough to do it. And that's kind of the difference with Michael Pierce. He has a little bit more juice, a little bit more lateral ability. He's short. He's only 6 foot. He's 340 pounds. He's built like a door. But he moves. I remember when we got him as a UDFA, I was writing for Russell Street Report, and I was doing like a series on like preseason impressions and guys that stood out. And in my article back in 2016, I wrote, I had to keep looking at the game sheet to see who number 78 was, because that was his preseason number. Because the guy I just kept looking. I was like, God, he flies out of his stance. He's like a little chubby guy. And it was Michael Pierce, and he ended up, sticking around for 4 years, and now he's back. So I really think that's kind of the difference between him and Brandon Williams. He's got more juice. He's a little bit more athletic. And Gully Squad asked here, how big is the delta between Pierce and B. Will? So, I think I just gave my opinion. So, Jake, what would you kind of say to that? Do you see a big difference here? Is this an upgrade based on last year?
I'm just expecting a little bit more in the pass rush department. Like you got nothing in that category from Brandon Williams. I mean, like he had some flashes with it, like early in his career, like 2014, 2015, people were saying he was the best defensive tackle in football because you took his run stuffing abilities and combined it with a little bit of pop in the pass rush department. But it just went away from him. I don't know for what reason, but it seems like, and again, these are the PFF things I'm looking at, and I'm no expert on defensive line, but it just seems like we're getting a little bit more of a well-rounded player at not as exorbitant a number. And if they were to bring Williams back, it probably would be at a similar number than this, but I would still take Pierce. So I don't think it's going to be like a ton, but the way I look at it is net, you're maybe a little bit more well-rounded, and you got Williams' big exorbitant contract off the books, and you just kind of move forward at this position. So.
Yeah, that's really well said. James, what do you think about the two in a comparison?
Yeah, I think Jake's right. It's just a little bit more pass rush. Brandon Williams has been an exceptional run defender, just exceptionally good. Like for years, snap after snap of teach tape of how to play as a nose against the run. So you can't underestimate how good he was against the run. I'm not sure he's quite reached those levels in the certainly not last year. He was still playing at a very, very high level as a run defender, but not at the point at which he's played over the course of his career. So, but he set incredibly high standards over the course of his career. So you're not getting that guy in Michael Pierce, but you're getting a very, very good run defending nose tackle, and it just feels like, as Jake said, they've kind of just reset. They are now getting a slightly less level of play as a run defender, for a far less cost. So it just feels like this is exactly what the people who don't want us investing too much money in run defense, they're getting exactly what they want. They're investing $7 million less in that run defense, $7 million of their cap space less in that run defense.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing that I think surprises me if people are upset about the people that lean more towards the positional value model and the, don't pay for run deep. Like, I don't see it as a premium investment, I guess. Like, it's, I just showed the picture. Like, if his cap hits $3 million, they still have $15 million through 2 restructures, and they still have way more buttons than just that to create. And that's what I'm saying. This isn't because I saw one comment on Twitter that was like, this is an overreaction to Zadarius Smith. And it's like, is it though? Like, they're different positions. It's not like they both can happen. And that's kind of where I want to go next with this before we wrap up. But just like, we kind of talked about this a little bit last night, Jake, doing the Zadarius Smith, but obviously we add a nose tackle, you take away the edge. So where do we go from here? And Jake, I'll start with you. Kind of what's the next move? What would you like to see before we get into the draft?
I don't think they were done when they thought Zadarius was going to be on the books for 6-7 mil more, or not quite that much, but a couple mil more than this. So I think they're certainly not done. And whether it's a move for a JC Treader or something like that, yeah, true. Big drop off in the locker room dance game. Now you don't have a Michael Pierce hitting Carlton.
I love Gully Squad.
But yeah, I think you have more money to work with to go and make another move. So whether it is a JC Treader, who we were talking about when we assumed Zadarius was going to be on the books anyway, I would like something like that. Maybe you bring Bradley Bozeman back, whose market you got a feel for the guy. It just did not unfold in the way that he was quite expecting there. Or our guy, Joe Linta, who we were talking about, really, truly hate that for him. So it's something like that, whether it's like we were talking about corner, wide receiver, like the options are open right now. And what did DeCosta say at his presser today? We're not done yet. So
yeah. And Jake or James, what about you?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there are plenty of sort of sneaky needs still on this team. Corner is definitely still a need, although I'm sure people might go a bit mad if you invest more dollars in the secondary. There are still places you can go in edge. If it isn't Zadarius, then there are other kind of solid pass rushes out there that you might want to bring in. So there are also plenty of good offensive linemen out there. I really do think that there's a chance. I feel that they're probably going to spend that. I said something on the UK Ravens podcast the other night, which was that one of the advantages, and I'm only playing devil's advocate a little bit because I did love the Zadarius signing. One of the advantages to the Ravens approach at times was that they were able to pick up and plug a lot of holes in free agency with a lot of guys that maybe weren't the top tier guys and were guys that maybe were a little bit less and were plugging holes all over the place so that they could enter the draft and go true BPA. So that might be a situation that they go to where they fill, instead of splashing the dollars on one more big signing, where they fill a number of holes and then are able to go truly BPA in a really, really good draft class.
Yeah, well said. And something that for me, I think was like, I keep stressing this. The reason I like the Zadarius Smith signing so much was because of his ability to slide inside. So that specifically doesn't take you out of the edge market if an edge is the BPA at 14 and a Jabo, a Jermaine Johnson. If somehow Trayvon Walker falls after all of that, the hoopla that is his combine. So, that's what all this move does, is it kind of takes Jordan Davis out of that question. I think it takes Travis Jones out too, because I just don't see you having a situation like what they had in 2019. Even though Jordan Davis is superior athletic to Brandon Williams, I don't think you'd want him as your kind of every down 3 tech, or you'd want to be pairing 2 1 techs, or I just don't see them, going that way. So that's kind of like, I don't see a lot of other edge guys on the market that bring me that versatility to reduce inside, play a little 3-4 tech. So that's, I think, what, maybe you look at like a Melvin Ingram, but I went back and looked, and Melvin Ingram actually didn't do that a lot last year. That was really back with the Chargers back in the day, where he'd kind of reduce inside a little bit. So there's just not a lot of those guys that are going to do that for you. So if you bring in a vet, Justin Houston, for example, they bring back Justin Houston. Well, they're going to draft an edge. It's a deep edge class, and they should. It's going to kind of block them, because you're going to probably play Justin Houston. So that's kind of where it gets tough for me. And now my focus kind of shifts towards, okay, who are some of the interior defensive line guys? A Calais Campbell, that guy that can, wreak havoc on the inside. There's a couple other guys, but it gets shallow really quick. So, I can only imagine the positional value folks having a absolute meltdown if they turned around and signed Bobby Wagner, just because he is an inside linebacker. It'd be funny. I wouldn't mind seeing it, just to kind of see how the drama on Twitter plays out. But it just kind of answer with, but it does. I think you nailed it. It makes corner that much more likely, in my opinion. Jake, what do you think about that? What do you think about a corner, like a Gilmore, a Bradbury if he gets released? I don't know who else is out there, but one of those kind of guys.
Yeah, we know the Bradbury interest is there. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me from that perspective. It makes sense from the perspective that you're talking about. I mean, we're talking about Peters having difficulty coming back from his injury, which I totally get. I mean, that's an Achilles for especially his play style, kind of a twitchy sort of guy that likes to play the ball in the air. That's concerning, but Marlon's injury is concerning too. I mean, I know that you really only need your legs to play corner effectively in some respects. Like your arms, whether it's beating wide receivers in press or going up to play the ball in the air, that's a concern too with his torn pec. So you got 2 guys that are coming off some pretty serious injuries, and not a whole lot behind that after Tavon Young gets released. And I think you needed to do that ultimately, but there's just not a lot there with Averett leaving. It just feels like it makes sense to go and get some depth. So whether it's like we talked about last night, maybe a Mike Hilton type, kind of that cagey veteran that you can get on a cheap number, I would like that. Did you guys know, I was literally just looking at this. Do you guys know Clowney had 11 sacks last year?
So I saw who put it there. Oh my God, Gordon McGinnis, who I'm sure, I don't really know a lot about Scottish-Irish relationships, but he's in Scotland. I don't know if he'd be celebrating today.
Scotland's north of England, so it's kind of
my European.
And Ireland is. I'm like half Irish, so they're all loyalist to me.
So he threw it out there because he's like, what about Clowney? Wouldn't he be a good fit? Let's press right on that. What do you guys think of a Jadeveon Clowney signing? Like that kind of, let's think hypothetically. They can create a bit. He seems to be the king of the 1-year contracts. He never seems to do the multi-year deal. What if they turned around and gave him a 1-year, $10 million, and they create that space through restructures? Like, how would we feel about that?
Yeah, like, and that's why I bring it up. Sorry to cut you off there, James, but like that's why I bring it up. Like the production and the fact that he seems like he's a similar player profile to Smith. He's also has a history of being a good interior rusher. So if you sign a guy like Pierce, that makes a little bit more sense as well to kind of clear those lanes for him. So I don't know. I kind of sneaky like it a lot. But yeah, it might be a lot of money. And he reminds me of like Peter Gibbons in Office Space when he's like not showing up to work and not doing anything, but they're just like giving him this raise and stock options and promoting him. Like I kind of respect his hustle from that respect too. So I don't know. I'm kind of for it. I don't know about you, James.
Yeah, the thing that puts me off is if it is a 1 year, because these deals they've done have been longer term deals, and they've been able to then use the cap space to be able to, they've been able to get creative with the cap space earlier in the contract, so, and bring that number down. So maybe the the 1 year thing would put me off a little bit. I just wonder whether I think you were closer on corner, because I think they will have played some scenarios out about this draft class. And when you look at number 14, the two positions that it just feels like would match up well with value would be corner and an edge rusher. And so maybe if they like as many edge guys as many corners that they like, maybe you go and get a corner, because you know that you're going to get a premium edge at 14. So maybe that's kind of playing into it a little bit. I don't know.
This scenario is killing me, because it seems just nuts to have all of your corners and both of your safeties being paid at a premium. But if you complement that with a relatively cheaper, quote unquote cheaper, because it's mostly draft picks, defensive line, it kind of makes sense, no?
Yeah, and Chuck Clark is getting cheaper by the year, right? I mean,
True.
Shout out to Linta. But yeah, I mean,
this is not a Linta friendly podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Jerry Krause looking dude.
Yeah. Take our group chat live here or anything, but yeah, Jerry Krause boys putting those deals together. But yeah, I mean, Chuck is getting less expensive. You just signed Marcus Williams, so we shouldn't allow that any of that to put a damper on the Williams or Moses signings that were two premium positions of need. So it's taken care of, and then you go and make this move today, and that frees up certain other moves to hopefully continue to still happen. So, like I said, I'm kind of open to anything, but yeah, another kind of depth corner would be a good move. So
I think another consideration isn't this Marcus Peters last year? So, I mean, if they say it's Brad, so Bradbury is owed, if they trade for Bradbury, he's owed $13 million this year, and then I think his contract's done next year. So they would have kind of like, you're not going to probably keep Bradbury under 13 mil cap hit, but they can do an extension if they brought him in. So if you were going to extend one of Peters or Bradbury, it lowers their cap hit, and you kind of wouldn't have either of them like you'd only have one of the two pass this year. So I mean, it does give you, if they go with like a Stephon Gilmore on a 2-year deal, if they go with there's a couple other corners out there that they could look at. If you give one of them a multi-year deal, it may look like an overinvestment in your DBs, specifically your corners this year, but Marcus Peters isn't on the books for next year. So it's also kind of a multi-year plan. They may want to kind of see what he looks like coming off the ACL. I mean, it is 2022 and ACLs aren't what they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, but there's a couple guys out there they could consider doing that with. And, I mean, I think DJ Reed's still out there. I think Dante Jackson's still out there. So, I mean, yeah, like there's that seems like a feasible move to bring in another corner. If, whether it's Bradbury on a 1-year deal, whether it's Peters on a 1-year deal, they're not here next year. You kind of extend one of them and create that succession plan where you have two starting outside corners next year.
And you have you have that built-in ace in the hole with restructuring Marlon or whoever it might be, or an extension for Lamar. And I think some of it might come down to, I think, as Dan Reese has pointed out, cash out of Steve Bisciotti's pocket, which he's not as rich as a Stan Kroenke necessarily, but he's a guy that wants to win. So I think if it comes down to it, if it's going to get them a player that they really need, he'll be willing to do that in 2 seconds. So
I think you guys just talked me into a corner. That Marcus Peters being on the last year of his deal is good justification to me. I think that makes sense. Also, shout out Eli Apple. He got another $4 million today. Good for him, whoever his agent is.
Honestly, I mean, talk about a good villain to have, though. I mean, we need more villains in the world, don't we? And that guy, like, I come to respect it. It's the same thing with Patrick Mahomes' wife. What's her name? Brittany. She just plays the role of villain so well. She's like Cersei, spraying people from her box with champagne. Like, it's just incredible stuff. So
that's amazing. All right. Well, I mean, that's kind of what I think that's a good plan. I just don't love the edge options that are on the market vis-a-vis this draft class. I do think corner's relatively deep, so I'll throw that out there too. James, did you kind of see that as you've been going through prospect that corner's pretty deep in this draft?
Yeah, corners deep. You'll get and to be fair, Egg DeCosta said it at the combine himself. Actually, you can get a corner at any point in this draft, and that's true. I think they were all geared up to go for a couple of corners. I guess the one thing that maybe a little disappointing to them is maybe they would go for they would have gone for a bigger offensive line splash if they'd known they weren't going to get Zadarius Smith. Maybe they wait and splash a bit more dollars on Lyle Collins instead of going for this kind of solid, dependable Morgan Moses signing. So maybe that's kind of a little bit of a frustration for them because it feels like the offensive line side of this free agency is the other place where this was probably a bit of a strength that they could have gone and thrown some money around, and they don't have that option anymore.
Well said. Well said. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for future. I still kind of like Clowney. I don't know why. I can't get off that idea. Can't
you? Because I definitely can.
What?
I can just picture him in the uniform. I think he would look like a total badass on the outside.
I've got this idea in my head from watching Ojabo and Hutchinson. Of that power rusher opposite speed rusher that they did with Hutch and Ojabo, and it's just burned in my brain. That's why I mentioned it last night. I was so excited about Smith. So it's like Clowney as the Hutchinson role, Owe as the Ojabo role. Who says no? So it keeps tripping me.
Yeah, the mentality is there. I mean, like they went and they signed or attempted to sign Zadarius Smith. They thought they got him and they didn't. And I don't think this to kind of bring the point around here. I don't think this Pierce signing precludes them from still pursuing an option there. And with some of these options still out there, whether it is a Clowney who you're probably paying a little bit more of a premium for, or a Melvin Ingram, or you draft one of these guys, I am very much on the Ojabo train. I think McDonald would be doing backflips if they were able to get him, pair him up with Owe, and now who they've got up front there, and some of those inside linebackers in the middle. So
Ojabo's somehow getting underrated. Weird to me. Definitely see some limitations in his game, but think he fits really well in what he'd be asked to do here. And it's a premium position, so it'll make the premium position folks do happy dances in the streets.
The thing that's crazy about Ojabo getting underrated is that I think you're seeing people starting to think he's that classic, like, I know when I first started watching the draft, it was like Vernon Golston, that toolsy guy that's just going to bust because all he is tools. And that's not Ojabo. Like given that he's only played, he's played less snaps than Owe has in college. Like the guy is polished as a rusher. He's got a plan and he's got an arsenal of moves. So I'm not like, I don't think he's a toolsy guy who's just going to bust out. That just doesn't seem like that would be the path for him.
And I mean, let's throw in another justification because our guy, Matt Weiss at the Matt Weiss, just tweeted a very good point. Allen now has Diggs and Davis. Burrows has Chase and Higgins. Herbert has Allen and Williams. Mahomes has Hill and Kelsey. Wilson has Sutton and Judy. And Carr now has Adams and Waller. So you can't have too many defensive backs. So if you're putting your money there and putting your draft capital in pass rushers, I've seen worse plans. I saw them sign Brandon Williams one time. So again, for that future looking, I mean, Matt makes a really good point there. That makes a ton of sense to me. They're loading up in the AFC and it's going to be a battle to get out. It also makes you wonder, could they look at some offensive firepower for some of these? There's just not a lot of it, but could they trade?
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I mean, they're sitting there at 14 and there's all these guys that are going to be there. None of them are really going to be in that top 10 mold. So maybe even that warrants a trade back into the 20s or something. And you grab one of these wide receivers that I think all of which are very good and all of which could start for an NFL team for day one, at least these round one guys that we're talking about. Maybe Jamison Williams falls. Maybe you go after George Pickens. Like there's going to be options. And to Matt's point, and you made the point there about how you can kind of inverse that and say they might need a little bit more to get up with the status quo of this arms race, so to speak, in the AFC. I have liked and I still continue to like the idea of adding offensive firepower through the air. Just like you can't have enough corners in this day and age, you cannot have enough weapons through the air.
Yeah, well said. And I almost I don't think they'll do it, but you never. There's always value in a a vet, and I don't think I want to see another Sammy Watkins-esque injury-prone guy. So I'm not going to put Julio Jones out there. Don't think that's the play. Okay, so this is my Clowney suggestion that I'm going to throw out there, where I'm not even quite sold on it. I'm just spitballing. What about Juju Smith-Schuster?
I wanted him last year. My problem was I just wanted a wide receiver, just a proven option at the position. And let me tell you, this is so freaking stupid. I downloaded. I was going to make a TikTok if they signed him. So that as soon as his dumb ass went back to Pittsburgh, I've screen recorded myself deleting TikTok off my phone. I was crestfallen to not get Juju. That's how bad we were at wide receiver at this time last year. So I don't know. His stock has fallen. He's going to be leaving there potentially. Why would he go back there to play with Mitch Trubisky, who, I think he'll be fine. But if you're trying to improve your career stock, you probably want to go somewhere else. And he knew the interest was there. And we know EDC has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, so he might not like the fact that they turned him down. But I wouldn't hate that at all.
The funny thing is, I think he fits as a big slot. He's not a number one receiver, so he's probably not going to get paid as one, which I think is very important. But I can kind of see it with Hollywood and Bateman and Juju.
That's where the fit was weird last year, but now you've got Hollywood, who had a good season playing a lot of the outside, and Bateman playing more X when he was on the field. So yeah,
no, that is perfectly said. James, what do you think?
I was going to say it's not a free agent signing, but I wrote a piece a while ago about I love the idea of Treylon Burks in Baltimore because he's a guy who just brings something totally different, and we've actually got some wide receiver coaches now, so you can coach that guy up from where he is. He's a raw piece of clay, but he's a guy who just is intriguing to me in a run first offense like the Ravens run, where he's you can use him as a decoy. He's a catch point guy. You can run him on reverses, and he's not Devin Duvernay. He's not just a speed guy. So there's a bunch of things you could do differently with him in this offense. I kind of like the idea of that. The wide back. I don't want to compare him to Debo because he's not Debo, but it's that kind of offensive weapon to add to what is beginning to become a really good receiving core.
And I actually think I don't think this will happen because I think he'll get a good enough contract that would preclude it, but I still love Jarvis Landry. He's just that speech of him in the Cleveland facility. It made me work harder, and I'm a federal public servant. He had me feeling bad about my work ethic. I think it's just he plays with a Baltimore Ravens offense mentality. I don't have to worry about him coming and blocking every week. I don't think he gives a crap about targets and production. And, he's probably set in the slot for you. He can go outside if you want. But with that speed around him,
he's another guy who and he's sorry to cut you off. He's another guy who it feels like they have these players that they sniff around on for years and years. Unique Ngakoue, some of these other guys, and he's one of them. I think they were looking at trading for him before the Browns did in 2019, and he made the mistake of going to Cleveland. I don't know though, because he went there and he really did help change that culture to a lot of Browns fans' point. And his stock is, I respect the hell out of the guy now, and I sympathize with him for wanting to get out of there and feeling like he got treated the wrong way. I think the Browns are treating a lot of people the wrong way right now.
And guess who's in the AFC North? Just saying, storylines.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm no Baker Mayfield off the field defender, but I feel like he got a raw deal there. It shows kind of how they're treating guys a little bit. And if you're Eric DeCosta, can you bring him to the castle on a visit and pitch him and say, hey, we're going to give you a chance to get revenge on these quarterbackless MFers next year 2 different times, and then maybe even more down the line. So that's a pretty good pitch to me.
And he's dropped 40 balls in, where's his targets? God, I hate the way PFF does this. He's only dropped 40 balls in his career. He's never dropped more than 7 balls in a season. He's had target years with targets of like, 100 plus. He doesn't drop the ball. So, he brings that too. But, it does seem like that kind of guy that I can't believe I'm talking about Jarvis Landry right now. But he's just that kind of guy that you just see as a fit. Like he's a culture fit. I think he'd want to win. He'd probably want to come here and do that. I think he'd like the way just the Ravens play. It fits his personality, fits his mindset. I think it would be one of those really sneaky moves that would really pay off with a big physical, receiver in the slot. I'm not going to compare it to Anquan because of what he did for the city and, huge reason they won that Super Bowl. So I'm not going to compare it to Anquan because I think Anquan was better, but it's Anquan-ish. I'll say that.
For as much as the Browns haven't won against the Ravens that much the last couple of years, he's killed them in those matchups too.
Yeah, he has. Again, PFF needs to change the way they list this. This is a mess. So, love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Who would you like to see signed? But I guess what this really shows is as much as I'm expecting BPA in the draft, I think they could also do some BPA stuff in the free agent class because they have so much draft capital. And that's something that I didn't really think they would do. But, once you kind of put some of these pieces together and you can kind of see how a corner might fit, even though it's a lot of money, how a wide receiver might fit, even though they've already drafted a bunch of guys. I think when you really picture what it could look like next season, it starts to make a lot more sense in the broader picture. And so I think I think we'll wrap up there. James, thanks so much for joining us, man. What time is it your time now? Is it 12:30?
20 past midnight.
Nailed it. So I had it nailed. And then when we did our daylight savings time, it has just absolutely thrown me through a loop. So
You guys do it, James?
What is daylight savings?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, but there's always like a two week like delay between. So I always get like 2 weeks of. It's only 4 hour time difference, so I don't.
Wait, didn't the U.S. just vote to end daylight savings time? Is that?
But it's only it still has to pass in the House. I think that might be a formality. I'm not really sure though, but we would still get 1 more year of it. But yes.
So Canada and the U.S. in the same time zone would have different times,
which would be sick. Well, Arizona doesn't do daylight savings actually.
Call your congressman, get it passed for me because it means I will not be staying up as late to watch games in the winter.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, I need one of those things like what they have in very important bureaucratic offices where they have clocks from around the world. I'm not going to put UK time. I'm just going to put James above my clock, so it tells me what times it is in James' house.
If you get it done and it gets passed, you'll see. When the UK tries to also eliminate daylight savings time, there'll be me outside the Houses of Parliament with a placard. Like,
okay, wait, question there, James. What do you call your member of the House? Is it a congressman?
It's a member of Parliament.
Okay, so we're on the same system. That's what. Yeah.
You should have it be like a football hashtag where they do like banger out, do hashtag daylight savings out.
Get it trending. Oh, I love it. And as you guys know, this was simulcast on Two Guys Watching Football and Baltimore Beatdown. Subscribe, like everywhere. Jake, love doing these with you. Let's keep it up for these free agent reaction videos. It's been a blast, and hopefully Spencer is behaving wherever he may be.
I think he is knee deep in a couple pints of Guinness, and I would join him, but I celebrated last week. Like I said, maybe I'll do it again this weekend for my liver's sake. Maybe not the best idea, but we'll see.
I love it. Well, that's all we have for you guys. Thanks for stopping in. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.